Morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is Econ 370, Group 15 Fed Challenge. My name is Sam Cook.
I'm Catherine Sternberger.
I'm Giovanni.
I'm Zerani.
I'm Caitlin Fisher.
Today we will be discussing multiple policies that are affecting the economy today.
Okay, so let's just start out by reminding everyone of where we left off last time. When we met on May 3rd, we have voted unanimously is what I meant, to maintain the interest rate paid on required and excess reserves at 1%. Additionally, we had decided to keep open market operations only as needed, and to establish the primary credit rate at the existing level of 1.5%. Our agenda for the day is to discuss the state of the economy and considerations for the future, as well as discuss and decide on our next moves.
The GDP grew around 0.7% in the first quarter of the 2017 because the government cut down the defense spending and the public welfare. The GDP grew in the weakest performance since the 2014. As a result, we need to think carefully about the increased interest rate in the later of this year. We predict the economy will continue growing since the government is planning on the tax cutting, which will spend the economy in the next following years.
Yes, it's important to remember that our post-recession actions to recover to that depreciation of the dollar, which applies appreciation of foreign currency rate to the dollar. This makes U.S. export relatively cheaper, like contributing to increasing in U.S. GDP. We will have to keep a close eye on the exchange rate of the U.S. dollar to maintain trade relation and a healthy trade balance.
So the history of our required reserves, they've been increasing in a general trend with some short-term decreases as well. So we'll just keep that in mind moving forward. The federal funds rate, as you all know, we decreased almost to 0% for recovery from the recession. And in the latter portion of 2015, we experienced our first increase, and several increases have taken place since then. On the agenda right now, currently we've said that we may increase it twice more in 2017, gradually. So part of our meeting today will be discussing whether or not that's still a good option for us.
So as we can see here, our employment rate has decreased significantly in the past 7 or so years as our post-recession recovery has been successful. One thing that's important to consider here, though, is that we don't know necessarily what kind of unemployment or where this unemployment is coming from. It's important that we consider that these jobs that are being provided may not be providing families with enough money to live off of. It could just be minimum wage jobs.
Unemployment rate is fact, but the employment rate is also an important indicator to reflect the economy in the United States. It is also important data for us to make the decision. According to the Labor Department's report, there are 235,000 jobs and health wage gains in the May. The economy is facing the bullish sentiment. The employment rate is also a very important fact, which will be considered by us when we make a decision increase interest.
So here we see that the interest rates that people who are buying houses are being given have significantly decreased since the recession and are fairly low right now in comparison to the rest of history. When considering the impact that the housing market has on the economy, we should also consider that prices are currently for homes almost as high as they were right before the recession and before the bubble burst. In addition to that, however, vacancies are dropping as well, so we don't necessarily know that the increased prices would be a bubble so much as they might just be increase for demand for houses impacting the prices. This is not necessarily a bubble, but it is something that we should keep an eye on. Our interest rates are lower than they were right before the bubble burst, so that is a good sign, but I do think that this is something that we need to consider. Here we have our personal disposable income in relation to debt. This is a good sign that it's dropping because it does show that the debt that people are taking out is at a more healthy rate, and it shows that the economy is most likely a little bit more stable along with the debt that people are taking on.
The CPI has increased 0.2% to nearly 2.2% because of the stable growth of the US economy. This inflation level is reasonable and appropriate, which is good for the growth of the economy. However, we are paying close attention on the CPI in order to prevent the economy from overheat and the price level increase too much.
So it's important to also view inflation in relation to our target inflation rate of 2%. So the green and blue line are monthly changes, 3-month, 12-month, and 1 month being the faded blue. And while those changes appear very close to our target, the actual inflation rate is actually rather far from our target rate of 2%. Next slide, please. So this chart shows our two mandates together, with 0.00 being the situation in which we would be meeting both our unemployment rate target of the national rate of unemployment and our core CPI target of 2%. The most recent data point on the graph is from March 2017, and it's illustrated by the blue dot there. As we can see, as of that date, we're still relatively far off of both of those goals.
So this graph here shows that income growth has been increasing and is at a fairly high rate. In response to this, I can consider that it's good evidence that we should continue our current approach in order to keep the income at a stable level for people.
For the international policy, the EMS have several of financial market turmoil, which is the financial market concerns about economic growth in China and about its exchange rate system, with foreign countries' growth relatively weak. The prospect of the gradual normalization of U.S. monetary policy contributed to a large appreciation of the dollar since mid 2014. The result is that the real effective change value of the dollar raised up around 70%. The Federal Reserve's implement on supporting domestic objects for inflation. Also, the implement has sometimes been criticized as having potentially not worth of being chosen on the global economy. The unconventional policy make the Federal Reserve focus on the global financial crisis, and it's especially our large scale of the asset purchase have been started precisely by some observers for supporting the U.S. economy by putting downward pressure on money and those hurting our trading partners.
So now on to the domestic side of things. As we all know, we've done a good job of keeping unemployment rate down towards the national employment rate. However, inflation has not worked out with us, and it has not increased as much as we expected. So we have to decide on the new unemployment rate low, because we've never reached this far. And then since jobs are increasing, we should take advantage about how we go about things and how the inflation should affect the job market and the housing market and all the other policies. And yeah.
Alright, so we should also consider what forecasters are saying. There seems to be a general consensus that employment growth will likely continue, but at a decreasing rate. There's also a hypothesis that Sam has mentioned that we're not at the full employment level yet, that the natural rate of unemployment may have changed since unemployment is so low and very near the natural rate of unemployment. While inflation is relatively minimal, this implies that perhaps we are not really at the full employment level and we need to reconsider that level. Wage growth is also expected to keep rising. Partially this is due to productivity increases, but also gradual consumer price inflation will push wages up slightly so that consumers can maintain their purchasing power.
So as a result of the forecasts that you just gave us, it sounds to me like we should consider raising the federal funds rate, but just by a little bit and only slightly. Do you have any other thoughts?
I would agree. Though the low unemployment does make me feel that what we would normally do is tighten our policy and increase the federal funds rate. Since inflation is relatively low, it seems that we should maintain looser policy. But this weird mix of things that we are seeing that suggests that perhaps we're not at the natural rate of unemployment, it might be the smartest and safest thing to do to increase our rate, but very slowly, and perhaps to keep our goal of 2 more hikes within 2017.
I agree.
So are we all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.